We're going to find out what a sentence is, what a sentence fragment is, and what the two necessary parts of a sentence are. My name is Nathan, teacher, and before we begin, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification button for more grammar videos as and when I release them. Well, hello and welcome. My name's Nathan. I'm your instructor for this course, and it's a delight to have you, and it's a delight to get started. Now, I wasn't taught grammar, even though I went to a grammar school. The only grammar that I really learnt was Latin grammar. But at any rate, I want to introduce you to sentence diagramming and to sentence grammar in general. And it's been a pleasure for me to learn it, and I want to share that pleasure with you. It's a pleasure of just knowing how your own language works. Perhaps you've come across people from other languages. They speak French, they speak Spanish, etc. They speak their own language, and maybe they have a good grasp of their grammar. And you think to yourself, well, why don't I know my grammar? Well, I want to help you. Now, I'm an English teacher by profession. I teach English in Mexico, and I've taught English in Africa and in Asia and in Europe and back home in the UK. Now, I really hope that you benefit from this. Now, I'm sure this is not going to be a perfect course, but I can make it better by responding to your suggestions. But at the heart of this course is you. I want you to feel better by really getting to grips with your own language. So I really hope that this works out well for you. I really hope that you're blessed by it. Let's begin. So at the heart of the sentence diagramming and sentence grammar is the sentence itself. But the question is, what is a sentence? And the best answer, I think, is a complete thought. It's something we grasp just by looking at it or by hearing it. So a sentence is a complete thought. But how do we split that up? How do we tell a complete thought from an incomplete thought? Well, as native speakers, we just do it. We just feel it or hear it. We realize that something is missing. But let's get into what a sentence is in the grammatical sense of the word. So there are two elements, some would say three, there are two elements that a sentence needs to be a sentence. The first is the subject. The subject is one of the two things. The second thing is what's called a predicate. Now, maybe you've heard these terms before and you're a little bit woolly as to what they mean. You kind of know what they mean, but maybe you're a little bit intimidated. Well, that's the way I was. So I want to take some time to explain these two separate parts, the subject and the predicate. Now, if a sentence has, for example, a subject but no predicate, or a predicate but no subject, then it's not a sentence. It's what's called a sentence fragment. Of course, we don't want sentence fragments, we want sentences. So let's jump right in with a couple of examples of sentence fragments that will help us tell the one genuine sentence from another and help illustrate what a subject is and a predicate. Let's take this sentence. Here it is. It says, the extensive family of the retired Russian general and his brother Bill. Now, this has all of the hallmarks of a sentence, more or less. It begins with a capital letter, and Russian capitalization is good. Okay, it ends with a full stop. It's quite lengthy, 12 or so letters long. Good. All seems good. But if we read it, it says, the extensive family of the retired Russian general and his brother Bill. And as native speakers, or those that are beginners or intermediates in English, we think to ourselves, something's missing. There's something not quite right here. The question is, what's missing? What's present? Now, what were the two parts of the sentence? What were the two parts of the sentence? The two parts of the sentence are the subject and the predicate. All right. Now, the subject is the first part, generally speaking, unless it's a question. But at any rate, subject and predicate. Now, we have something here, but then it stops. The extensive family of the retired Russian general and his brother Bill. So we know who this sentence is about. Something to do with a family and his brother, Bill. Okay. But we don't know what the extensive family of the retired Russian general is or does. Something's missing, and the bit that's missing is the predicate. There is no predicate there. The predicate contains the verb or verbs, and the predicate tells us one of two things. It tells us what the subject is, or it tells us what the subject does. Now, we have a subject here in this sentence, the extensive family of the retired Russian general and his brother. It's a long subject, many letters long, but there's no verb. The subject, who we're talking about, is there, but what is missing is the predicate. All right. What do we call a sentence that is either missing a subject or a predicate? The answer is it's called a sentence fragment. We don't want sentence fragments. We want whole sentences. So once again, what we have here is the subject, who we're talking about, the extensive family, etc., etc. But there's no verb. And the verb can tell us two things. It can tell us what the subject is or what the subject does. We have neither one here. This is a sentence fragment that is missing the predicate. All right, let's have a look at another sentence. Here's another sentence. Went to town. Again, we have a capital letter to begin with, and we finish with a full stop, or a period if you're American. Great. Now, a predicate contains a verb. We have a verb here. Went, from the verb go. That's great. We have a predicate. It's telling us something is happening. Someone went somewhere. Great. What are the two parts of a sentence? The two parts of a sentence are the subject, who or what, and the predicate, who or what is or does something. Now, what do we have here? We have a verb, so we have a predicate. Great, we have a predicate. Excellent. This is what was missing in this much longer sentence. Subject, 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 without any predicate. Great. Not so great, actually. What we have here is a predicate, verb. The verb went, from the verb to go, but we don't know who or what went to town. Immediately, as native speakers, we scratch our heads and we go, who went to town? Perhaps it was me. I went to town. Perhaps it was you. Perhaps it was a whole team of people. Perhaps everybody went to town. Who knows? We don't know in this sentence. This sentence, therefore, is missing a subject. It's missing the who or the what of the sentence. It has a predicate, yay, but it has no subject. What do we call a sentence that's not a sentence that is missing either a subject or the predicate? It's called a sentence fragment. Went to town is a sentence fragment. All right. Once again, two parts of a sentence that are needed for the sentence to be a sentence, the subject and the predicate. If a subject is missing or the predicate is missing, what is the sentence that's not a sentence called? It's called a sentence fragment. It's up here somewhere. Sentence fragment. All right. Now, let's have a look at an actual sentence. Let's skip on from the not sentences, the sentence fragments. All right. So here we have an actual sentence. Now, we instinctively know when a sentence is a sentence and when it's a sentence fragment. It just doesn't feel right. The definition of a sentence that I gave earlier was that it was a complete thought. A complete thought. And we instinctively know when a sentence is incomplete. Okay. Here we have a complete thought. There's no stress here. There's no problem. Everything's there. We have a capital letter. We have a full stop. Great. Now, but formally, and this is a more formal course, a grammar course, what are the two elements that we need in order for a sentence to be a sentence? The two elements we need are the subject and the predicate. Previously, we gave examples of what a subject was and what a predicate was. What I want to do now is give you a closer definition of a subject. A subject answers a question. The question is... Now, a subject answers a question. The subject answers the question, who or what, followed by the verb. All right. Now, let's identify the verb. The verb is went. Great. So we're going to ask who or what went. And the answer to that question will be our subject. Great. So, who or what plus verb. Who or what went to town? Great. The answer is simple. The answer is he. Therefore, our subject is he. So, a subject answers the question who or what plus the verb. All right, let's move on to the predicate. How do we identify a predicate? So, we identify a subject by asking who or what, followed by the verb, and the answer to that question gives us the subject. Great. How do we find the predicate? We find the predicate by asking subject, which we will already have identified, then what? Subject, what? Let's return to this sentence. We already have identified the subject. The subject is he. He what? The answer is he went. The predicate is went. Now, the predicate must always contain a verb. And in this case, yes, the predicate contains the verb. The verb is went. We have done an awful lot in a short time, so let's briefly recap. First of all, at the heart of sentence diagramming is the sentence. What is a sentence? A sentence is a complete thought. We know what a complete thought is, a proper sentence is, just by how it feels. If it feels off, if it feels like something's missing, then we know it's a sentence fragment. Great. But formally, in terms of grammar, how do we know if a sentence is a sentence? A sentence always has two things. What are those two things? A sentence always has a subject and a predicate. If it is missing a subject or a predicate, then therefore it is a sentence fragment. All right. Now, next question is, how do we identify the subject? We identify the subject by asking who or what plus verb. In this sentence, he went to town, we would ask who or what went to town. The answer is he. He is our subject. Great. How do we identify the predicate? We identify the predicate by asking subject what? Subject what in this case? Subject he. He what? He went to town. Went to town is our predicate. By the way, the predicate must always contain a verb, which this does. Okay, that's it for lesson 1. I hope you enjoyed it. See you again in lesson 2.